welcome to episode 59 of Flesh and Pod. I am your host, Logan, and with me as always now, Darick Oswald. Chamber, what did you get up to in Flesh and Blood this week?
So for Flesh and Blood this week, I got some games in. I went to my armory, played a couple of games on Talishar, and haven't got deep yet, but I started to get all my stuff around to start sorting my cards because I've decided that that's part of my to-do list this year, because I have just piles and piles of cards. And while there is a method to my current madness, it is not very efficient because it's just vertical stacks by rarity. So I decided, hey, I'm going to start sorting these. So I actually did quite a bit Flesh and Blood related. And then I did a bunch non-Flesh and Blood related as well with other TCGs. So this week was just a phenomenal week for cards all the way around.
I mean, that's good to hear. I did what I would consider to be a metric fuck ton. So first off, I did my normal Thursday armory, which was just Blitz. We have this weird thing where, so it's almost like we decide ahead of time, a few of us, whether we're playing memes or we're not. And no one announced this as a meme night. And so everybody kind of just showed up with their thing that they would take to win something. As a result, I lost to the other Kasai main. And our games are always absurd. It was my only loss. It's always my only loss. Our friend of the show, friend of the podcast, Dagan White, ended up in last place because that's what happens when we all try at Blitz. And not the other formats. He will body us in draft most of the time, and every time body us in Classic Constructed. But Blitz is where we get our pound of flesh. And that was a good time. And then I competed into Pro Quests. Now, let's preface this. I drove 1,800 miles this weekend because I attended Pro Quests in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at Green Tree Sports Cards. I'm going to go into detail about that event momentarily. And then also at the boardroom in Hurricane, West Virginia. And I played Briar in both. So the Green Tree event, fucking Mazel Tov. Like, jeepers. That event was fantastic. 50 players, prizes galore, door prizes galore, coverage being done, not like kind of guerrilla coverage, not like game coverage, but like a documentary style, like videography of things going on. Got to be on camera doing Flip It and Rip It. I won a door prize Nourishing Emptiness playmat, which I just snap sold because somebody was like, I want to buy that from you. And I was like, I don't want it. Wound up taking home two of my holy grails that I have wanted from Flesh and Blood for a while, which is a Go Bananas, because that card is ludicrous and fun as shit. And I am not afraid to say, well, at this exact point in time, I need a Command and Conquer. I'm going to go buy a case of Arc. I'll be right back. And then also, I've always wanted a sealed retailer appreciation kit. And I now own one. So we did that too. And the event was ridiculously well run. So we had Keith Bartram from The Realm as the level 2 judge in charge of the event. John and the team at Green Tree did just absurdly good work at having a good size inventory with them that was priced. They were buying cards. There was nobody at the event that was anything other than just an S-tier human being. Everything felt great. Like, it was, I lost to Charles Dunn in round 1 with the most fucking hateful Oldham deck I've ever been a party to. Like, when in the first 4 turns, he played 2 red sigils and 2 red healing balms and had Oasis respited me. And I knew that this was not my day. At the end of that, he had played all 3 of each, and then also had pitched Heart of Findle at least 3 times. Nope. I can't kill you from 60 plus. Not happening. So that was, so I did the classic, Flesh and Blood, lost in round 1. So I'm already dead for the tournament. Mm-hmm. And wound up going X2, finishing in 14th because I lost in round 1. But it was still just such a good tournament. It was such a good event. But I will say this. Pittsburgh's a fucking shit show. It is the Airbnb I was staying at, which was a very nice place. The Airbnb itself, zero complaints. It was
Everything
super
around
nice. No, it was not even everything around it. It was built on the top of a steep ass hill on a goddamn cliff. All of these houses were built into cliffs. And it had snowed a little bit. Like by Midwestern standards, it ain't shit. However, when you're staring down the barrel of like a 70-degree incline to get to where you're going, it matters, turns out. So getting to the place was just a comedy of errors, and we're just trying to like go, what the fuck? Who would build a city into cliff faces? Like, why would you do that? And then also, the city is not built as a grid. You know how you have cross streets and it creates a logical flow of everything? Nah, fuck that. We have U-turns and sharp divides and hidden driveways and blind spots. That's all the city is made of, is blind spots. Every time that they made a engineering decision, they said, that looks great, but there's not a blind spot. And so they put one there. To the point of this, we were going out of a parking lot and the person I was with was like, I don't think there's a blind spot here. And I noticed that they had planted a bush exactly where it would become a fucking blind spot. I'm like, nope. They saw it coming. They prepared. They knew what they were doing. Very nice. And so then, that one I did again. I just finished 4-2 in 14th. They were giving a pack per win. So they put giving skins on top of door prizes, on top of box prizes for top 8. Again, just great job. Then played at the boardroom. And like I said, in Hurricane, West Virginia. It was a good event. 26 players. So lots, half the size than what I was at. I finished Swiss at 3-2 in 7th, and then died in the semifinals to AFI, who ate my very good Channel Mount Heroic turn to then play their double Art of War turn. And their double Art of War turn was better, and was better than my next turn. So yeah, that was a hard one. I was still in a spot to win it, but I just couldn't quite recover and find what I needed. But it was, very well played on his side, at least. I'm not sure about my play, but that event, like I said, very good. But I then immediately after the event left Hurricane, West Virginia at like 7 p.m. and then drove 11 hours and change back home directly through the night. So getting home this morning, I was washed. I felt like a human being that was no longer human. But that does speak to a lot to what we go through, the links we'll go through to play this game at a competitive level as much as we can with the community of people that exist out there. So the best part of this entire weekend was I got to talk to people and got to hang out with people that I genuinely enjoy being around. So Sin, Jeffo, John at Green Tree, Keith Bartram from the Realm, Nate Snyder, Anna and Chris Shreve in West Virginia. Rocky fucking ditched me. I'm not going to cut the full promo right now, but Rocky, if you're listening, man, you were going to go through that fucking table. There was no stopping me. I was going to finish you at that event, and you then no-showed, and I'm beginning to think that you are scared of the confrontation that's coming, my friend, but you will go through that table. I promise you. It will happen. But overall, I had a very good weekend of doing all that. It was a great time, and I regret nothing. However, I will not make that drive again. We will buy a plane ticket and not make that drive ever again.
Yeah, that's quite the drive for sure. More than twice the drive that I'm already dreading making this upcoming weekend, because I'm attending 2 ProQuests in the weekend upcoming. One that I'm going to be playing in, and then another one that, spoiler alert, I might be doing some coverage for a ProQuest this weekend. So,
where
keep an eye
at?
out for that. I'm still, finalizing everything, but all signs are pointing to me driving down and then doing coverage for the Realm Games ProQuest on Sunday.
you couldn't go to a better place. Like,
Yeah, they already have announced great prizes, and I know
it's a 1K.
Yeah, Keith does good stuff, so I'm excited.
I very much so thought about staying in Central Ohio over the week and working remotely, and then attending the ProQuest. But I am going to be going to Minneapolis this weekend, where I'll see our friend Flake, who just sent us a message in Discord that said, and I quote, "Fuck MTG Melee." I agree with the sentiment. So that is why I'm bringing it up, because fuck
Yeah,
MTG
he must
Melee.
be signing up for indie because
He is signing up for the pro. He's signing up for the Calling It Indie. 100% true. I hate that platform so much. It's not
me
good.
too.
Oh Jesus! Like,
Yeah,
Gem exists. What the fuck are we doing?
We don't need MTG Melee.
We don't at all.
AB ranged. We can call it azalea.com.
Jesus, please no. Darick. You know what we're not going to do?
Call me Charmander?
No, well, maybe later. We are.
What are we not going to do?
We are not going to complain about knowing where the Pro Tour is or when it is, because now we know where and when the Pro Tour is. It took a while. It took some work.
Listen, I need to jump in real quick because the way you worded that is perfect. Absolutely fantastic. We're not going to complain about knowing where the Pro Tour is, because let me tell you, I heard a lot of complaints about not having news for the Pro Tour, and then we got it, and everyone was like, wait, no, not like that. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, gang. Over the last year, I've heard, hey, we're having way too many events. We're getting event fatigue. We've had like 3 callings in 3 months, because I remember when it was like Dallas, Cincy, whatever. I mean, it was just back to back to back to back.
Dallas, Cincy, Orlando.
Like,
yep.
Yeah. It was just like, everybody's like, hey, we need to slow down. This is a lot of travel, and like, I need to get vacation time. I know you're shaking your head, but I heard this from a lot of folks, right? So then they took our feedback, and we had this like kind of 2 months hiatus during the holidays this year. And then everyone was like, wait, we need events. I need something to play for. So it was too many events, not enough events. And then everyone was like, hey, tell me about the Pro Tour. I need to know about the Pro Tour. Pro Tour. Wait, no, not like that. Right. Immediately they said Baltimore. And look, I get it. I know that Baltimore doesn't sound sexy. Okay. As somebody who's from Michigan, our biggest city is Detroit. I fully understand folks hearing the words Baltimore and being like, but I have a couple of rebuttals here. First, as somebody who is from Michigan and knows what like Detroit is, for example, if you were to tell me, hey, there's going to be a calling in Detroit, I would be ecstatic, because it is a very accessible city, great international airport. It's actually got multiple fantastic convention centers. There's good food, walkable downtown. Like, I know everyone's thinking, I don't want to go to RoboCop land when you hear Detroit. But
I'll buy that for $1.
I'm telling you, like, it's actually kind of a cool area. So I'm trying to give Baltimore the benefit of the doubt and say, you know what? I know that they've got great convention centers there, and they're on the East Coast. So there's good seafood.
Easy
and
to fly
the reality is, again, like, I know people love destination stuff, but the reality is I'm going to be playing cards most of the time I'm there anyway. Like, I don't need some place where I'm going sightseeing. I need some place where I can sit comfortably that's not in a tent outside and play some Flesh and Blood. So I am going to try to be positive here and say I'm looking forward to Baltimore, and I'm going to try to qualify for the Pro Tour. And if I don't, then I will be knocking on LSS's door repeatedly to see if they'll let me cast it, because I want to go. But I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, honestly, I enjoy Baltimore. I have zero complaints about Baltimore. The food scene's great. It's easy to get into. It's not even remotely as dangerous as people think, say it is, unless you factor in like staying places that are questionable. But every city has places you can stay that are questionable. Des Moines, fucking Iowa, has places you can stay that are questionable. Yeah. So it's a city, and
it's America.
Right.
like I know that we're not supposed to be this dark on the show, but allow me to just say that, like, if you go to a church or a school or a theater or a mall or whatever here, like, you're in danger. I'm sorry, this is America.
Yeah, but like I said, it's safer than Ohio, like the entire state for the most part. So what, I mean, and we go to Ohio on a regular fucking basis. I just drove through that thing, yesterday. So I think I like it. I am here for Baltimore. I think Baltimore is a fine choice. The Eastern Seaboard is very cool. You have access to so many things to do after you play Flesh and Blood. Like when I wash out, I'm probably going to go find Mo Bogsley and we're going to go to a fucking Orioles or Nats game or something. Like we're going to go do something, because we can. It's a good city for those things. I know that there's been a lot of backlash on it. I think that, and let's be fair, if you don't feel like you can go, don't go. Like that's all there is to it. I don't want to be that person, but at the same time, it's if you feel unsafe but want to go, let me know. You can very well hang out with me, and I don't get fucked with much because I apparently am kind of scary. I think Mara called it, I'm a teddy bear with a knife taped to its hand or something. And okay, fine, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I also tend to not get a lot of flack, but I've been told by several people that I give off strong cop vibes, which is first of all very degrading. That like I get it. Also, I get it, but you might as well call me Tan and Grace at that point.
Oh Jesus Christ! Well, I'm glad he doesn't listen to this show. Or if he started, we're not taking that back.
Yeah, I mean, I love you,
I'm
Tannen,
not apologizing either, but like, kind of does give off some cop vibes every now and again.
He gives off prosecuting attorney vibes, and I give off the muscle.
What world are you the muscle? Like
the world where Tannen is the other person.
Okay, fine. And
like it's just relative. I'm not
secretary.
saying,
like I don't get it. Like how is this organization set up? I have a lot of questions. Also at the Pro Tour again, it is CC, so it's CC and Outsiders draft, which Outsiders
so for draft.
I know, right? I think that being a month basically after the release of Outsiders, people have general ideas of strategy, but it won't feel solved. So I think that's good. I like that. There will be the other contest, another cosplay contest for a Taylor card. I think our queen, Carolina, may be abdicating her crown to give other people a chance, as she won PT1 and won Worlds in the cosplay contest. So I think she's made her point. And then also there will be a classic constructed calling, which again, reason to go if you're not qualified for the Pro Tour. And also a Blitz Battle Hardened, which is I like that. I like that they're putting Blitz in a spot to have a place at the weekend. I think that that's very important. I've been on other shows. I've talked a lot about this. I'm not the biggest Blitz person in the world, but I will defend Blitz being an actual competitive format of Flesh and Blood until the cows come home, because it is defined by LSS as a competitive format. And a lot of the flack it gets is for being, you can just get high rolled. You can get high rolled by Briar at any point in time. So don't act like it doesn't happen in CC. Like,
yeah,
there are deterministic games of Classic Constructed too that happen very early. And sometimes you're playing out the string, you're already dead and you didn't know it yet.
Let me tell you, I have been on the receiving end of a high roll Bolton combo in Classic Constructed. And I have also been on the punishing end of playing a discard heavy Bravo where I 38-0'd a combo Bolton. And so I think in both cases, you could say you got high rolled in CC. Like, it does happen.
Yeah, I had a person in West Virginia come up, and I recognized him, and I couldn't exactly place where from or what the first interaction was. And that happens sometimes where I do interact with a lot of people, and often like I just need some memory jogging. And he was talking to me, and again, it was very familiar. And then he was like, yeah, I was XO, in the Realm event on Briar, feeling pretty good. And I sat down across from you and you revealed Katsu, and I'm like, sweet, I'm 4-0. And then you did me as dirty as a human being has ever done another human being. I'm like, oh shit, now I remember. You let me go get you let me do a full Lord of Wind turn. And by full, I mean there were 6 targets in the yard, and I got all 3 Lord of Winds. Full. Like, did all of it. And he just kind of let it happen because he had a channel mount heroic, and he's just like, shit. What am I at? I'm like, 4. Like, you were fucking done. You are basically Kodachi locked on turn 3. So sorry about your life at this one. And he was like, yeah. And I learned it that day that, like, you can't just let him have it. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be a frame of reference for this. What is? He's like, oh, I just beat the shit out of a Katsu. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense all of a sudden. And then I played the Katsu player, and he was just like, he wasn't frustrated. He was just kind of watching and just like, he's like, what the hell do I even do? And I'm like, well, against most people, you can accomplish a lot because they don't know to block the second Kodachi. And so they'll just let that one go, and then you can get some mass trigger, because then they'll just try to full block your next attack, and you can empowerment or whatever over the top and then get your mass trigger plus. And so you can just generate a ton of value. But if they know to block the second Kodachi, that entire string gets a lot more difficult. And he's just like, oh yeah, you did that basically every turn, didn't you? I'm like, not basically, literally, until it wasn't deterministic for the match result anymore. I let you have one mass trigger because it didn't matter. You were just absolutely dead to the arcane damage, so I just didn't give shit.
Funny, I played against Katsu at my armory this week, and I was on Bravo, and I never blocked the second Kodachi, which almost rarely happens. I'm almost always blocking it, but I never did because they had a 2-card hand for,
like I said, you tore their hand apart.
It was so bad. I felt so bad. Chris, if you ever listen to this, I know I did you wrong. We played 2 games in the time that we had for the round, and I bodied them both. Like, it wasn't even close. And I had to tell him afterwards. I was like, hey, I'm built for the aggro matchup. Like, my deck is meant to eat Katsu, Briar, Fi. Like, that's what my deck is built for. And so it wasn't even close. But
yeah, it was. And again, it's like that's kind of, I think, where we're at with Katsu right now. And that's sad. However, Katsu's coming back, because now we also have Outsiders information, and our boy is in the set, which means we're going to get some Katsu support. And that excites me, because I need a reason to not play Fi when I'm playing Ninja. I want to play Katsu. I want to dig out my cold foil Kodachis.
I am very excited for this for a couple of reasons. I want to finally crack Ninja. I know I've told you this, but I'm missing a bunch of Ninja stuff, which is the only reason that I haven't taken the deep dive. But I think that we're going to get some more Crouching Tiger support specifically. And the fact that this upcoming set has not just Katsu, but also Benji, who is pretty spicy as well once you start getting the Tigers going. I am really looking forward to seeing what Ninja can do, both in Blitz, Constructed, and even Draft, once we start cracking Outsiders.
Spring Tidings is a fucked up card. Like, when that actually happens, it is a fucked up card. But we do have six heroes in this set, with our friends Katsu, both in young and old, obviously. Benji, who is still young only, and Azalea, both young. God, we say young and old, but it should be young and adult, honestly. The only one that looks old is Oldhim. Are all coming back. So we're going to get a lot of Ranger support too, which is great. And then we have some fun ones, because we have Riptide, young Riptide, and then Riptide, Lurker of the Deep. And I'm going to talk... Let's dig into Riptide for a moment. He is a trap-based ranger, which is also already dope. Like, that is enough. But if you look at Riptide, this motherfucker has a story to tell. Because if you look at young Riptide, looks like he's living his best life. Probably on the harbor in Baltimore.
Dude's just like a member of the newest season of Deadliest Catch. You know,
he's mongering some fish. Seems great. All's right with the world. He does his job on the WAF, and he then goes home to his wife and babies, and everything is fine in the world. But this man's been through some shit by the time that he grows up. Because if you look at Riptide, Lurker of the Deep, motherfucker's missing half an arm that's replaced by some robotics. He's got heads, dismembered heads, hanging from what can only be called a belt of what, barbed wire? Like, it's some shit.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's supposed to be barbed wire. There are these strings. So somebody who did a lot of fishing when I was a kid with their family, there are these strings that you get that have like these little tiny hooks on them that you're supposed to hang fish from on like their gills and stuff. Like you string them up, and I think that's what it's supposed to be, but just with heads on it.
Heads. Like, if anybody's ever wondering if this game was made for kids, this is evidence it is not, because those are decapitated heads hanging from a fishing line around the waist of a man covered in blood and gristle, who also is missing the majority of an arm and is holding a chain that I can only hope. Oh no, you can actually see through the art. And one of the heads is not dismembered. It's actually still dragging something. He has a giant bloody hook. And then the chain is connected to an anchor that is absolutely impaling the chest of another victim. There's no fucks to give by this character. Actual zero. And
yeah, just to be fully clear, I sent you a link to the like blown up art because I love this art.
It's insane.
I'm excited for a couple of reasons. One, as you said, trap-based ranger. That's an area that we just have not explored a lot of. I think that there's a lot of really cool ways they could attack this from a design standpoint. The only traps that we have in the game so far are all defense reactions that have to be played from Arsenal. So think of them as like the defensive ranger cards, right? Arrows, offense, traps, defense, but they have to come from your arsenal. Now that excites me because I've been saying for a while that I was wondering if they would ever print a ranger weapon that wasn't a bow. And while he does look like he has a bow kind of like peeking up from his back, or it could be something, there's like something over his shoulder, and I could definitely see that being a bow. The fact that he's got this really badass like meat hook anchor thing, I wonder if we will get a weapon for Riptide somehow that is not a bow, because you're going to be putting traps in your arsenal, so you'll never have room for arrows, right? Like that, I could see him almost being like the Ranger Guardian kind of play style where you're playing defensive and you smash with your big meat hook and then you lay traps, and your opponent is always wondering like, okay, like what do I got to do? Am I going to have to pay the tax to avoid damage? Am I going to, have to discard cards? Like what's going to happen here? I'm really excited to see what they do with him from a design standpoint, because I feel like it'll be different from the Rangers we've had in the past.
Yeah, I also am very excited to play him in the Flesh and Blood fighting game whenever that happens on PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 9 or Xbox Series Z. So I think he'll be very good in that.
Get over here. Exactly.
Get over here.
I'll play him in the MOBA.
Except for it's a fucking anchor. Like,
yeah. He's the Nautilus.
He is a gangplank with extra steps. But then we also get Azuri. Azuri is super interesting to me because Azuri is an assassin.
Mm-hmm.
And the coolest part of Azuri is you look at adult Azuri, it's the Pits card frame, because she's the leader of this ring of assassins that involves Riptide and Arachne. But if you look at her young version, it's the Mysteria frame.
Yep. And she looks like a ninja.
She's a ninja. She's from that area. And that's where Benji and Katsu come in. So this is where I'm interested, because I feel like this is the opportunity of something that you brought up, Darick, I believe last week, where it would be interesting to have a young and adult hero with functionally different abilities between the young and the adult. I think that this is a spot you could do. I don't think they're going to do it this time, but this gives some proof of concept when you have characters that are from one place that wind up somewhere else, and it changes them. And I think that we're there with Azuri, because
I,
I
I
mean, that's interesting.
I think thematically and lore wise, we're definitely there with her. And I love that. I love that they're using something as simple as just like the borders and card frames to tell a story. Just fantastic. Absolutely adore it.
A
But
plus.
I also think that functionally, we are kind of getting that with Arachne, because Arachne is in this set, but it is only as a young hero, and it will not
Mm-hmm.
be the same as the one that we just got in Dynasty. So it's Arachne solitary confinement. And again, if you're wondering if this is a game for kids, the art on that one, especially the expanded one, is
Ooh.
literally him just gutting some dude in prison. Like, it's solitary confinement because he killed everyone else in the cell and he's the only one there.
He's
Like,
yeah,
that's what's happening.
he's solitary on his own accord.
And
The
completely speculation here, but I think both him and Riptide are also very appealing to me because they have less than the standard health. So Arachne
mhm.
and Riptide, their young versions, both have 19. We don't know what their abilities are yet, but that's relevant. And obviously Riptide as an adult has 38. So whatever they do is powerful enough that they were like, hey, start at a little bit less health. And whenever we've seen that in the past, usually Hero's been pretty good, whether it's Kano or, you know, current boogeyman Icelander, right? So I'm kind of hyped.
Benji and the Berserker Runt KO are not that tier, but yeah, I
Yet.
do think that's interesting. I also love that how this plays into Arachne's story, because clearly Arachne's solitary confinement happened before the execution of the Emperor. To me, if you look at the mask, if you look at everything that's going on with Arachne, it really looks like this is before becoming Arachne the Huntsman.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a very cool set of lore, and then that all feeds into the Squeaker's Christmas story too, where this all feels like it actually has a continual story, which is super, like, that we've talked about that before, where that is so interesting. And and also LSS did not do us dirty, so Majestic Arachne does matter, because they did not print just reprint it as a token. But the I think it's very cool, this draft format. Like, let's talk about that really quick, because this has the makings of something super fucking cool. 6 heroes, shared classes, and hybrid cards. This
Yes.
is dope.
This is the way that I've been trying to think about it is this is Tales of Aria on steroids. And I loved drafting Tales because Tales was, we had 3 heroes, but because each one was, you know, dual elemental, right? Then you had interesting draft scenarios because you were competing for cards with other classes and there was that kind of shared overlap. And I thought that was really neat. And so it's like they took that and they were like, hey, that's a lot of fun. What if we just doubled that experience? So you go from 3 to 6, but also this now means you are competing with the other versions of the hero that you are potentially playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, are you drafting for Katsu or are you drafting for Benji? And that means that even within the ninja cards, you might have different prioritizations depending on which one you're planning to go for. Same with the Rangers, same with the Assassins. And then you go a level deeper and you say, okay, there's also dual class cards in the set. So there was, you know, assassin ninja cards, for example. And so now you're competing for those across 4 different heroes, all at the same draft table. So
Yep.
the decision making during the drafting process, I feel like for this set is going to be unlike anything we've had in Flesh and Blood to date. And
Agreed.
that is phenomenal.
It's exciting.
I'm like salivating. And I know that Brian, so shout out to you, Brian. He kept saying like, hey, this next set's going to be a drafter's dream. I haven't even seen the cards and I already feel like he was barely touching it, right? Like, this is
He was
such a cool
underselling.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way underselling. I hope every set like this or something like this going forward, because this is really cool.
Now, I know I touched on this earlier, but it's back to the essence of solvability, right? you can like, so Uprising draft is pretty well solved. Tails draft was solved very quickly before the Briar errata, and then it sort of shifted. But I think most people understand how to draft Tails now. WTR, due to the just wealth of generics, will never be a fully solved draft. It just isn't possible. Every hero is viable. Every hero strategy is viable. Everything you can win with anything. This feels more like that, where because you have these hybrid cards, these shared classes amongst 6 heroes that are going to have differing abilities. We already know what Katsu's is. We already know what Benji's is. We already know what Azalea's is. That we can expect to, maybe as Azalea, you're prioritizing arrows, but maybe there's a really cool trap that also is very good for Azalea, but obviously Riptide wants the traps more because of whatever ability Riptide is. The interplay between Arachne and Azuri is going to be interesting. Or if there are certain ninja assassin hybrid cards that really play into everything Azuri is doing, but are also good for Benji and Katsu, that's also interesting. So there's just so many cool things you can do. And I'm glad they're exploring this design space. I think it's very smart. I think it's very well thought out. And the cards themselves, so we only have one right now because they're obviously they're not going to feed us the fucking fire hose in January for a March set, which I get it. That's cool. But so far we have Codex.
Oh, sure, go ahead. Technically we have 2 because we did get the secret.
We do have the secret one, which we've already talked about.
We've already talked about it, but we got
Razor's
one
Edge.
new one. Yeah. We got the Razor's Edge.
New one, but we also have Codex of Frailty, which is a 0 cost yellow. So for the pitch value at least. Majestic Assassin Ranger action. It's a 2 block, so probably not blocking with it unless you have to. But it's very cool because it's each hero puts an attack action card from their graveyard face down into their arsenal. Again, Ranger. Each hero that does discards a card. So there's no, it's net neutral. Create a ponder token under your control. So that's at the end of turn, draw a card. Mm-hmm. Again, this is putting something into Arsenal already. So if you have a way to have dual arsenals, that expands that.
That's great.
Yep. And a frailty token under each opponent's control. What's a frailty token?
I don't know, but I want to know because it sounds really cool. There's so much about this card, even without knowing all of the interactions, that I already love. For example, you were talking about, hey, if you have 2 arsenals, then this card is potentially great. But I was thinking that, let's just say, my hopes and dreams are shattered and Riptide also has a bow and he has to use arrows, right? Because then that makes things a little bit more difficult to manage between prioritizing traps and arrows, obviously. Yep. Well, a card like this kind of helps with that because you can use the Codex to load your arsenal with an arrow, fire the arrow from your discard that you just, put there. And then at the end of your turn, off your ponder token, jam a trap back down in there, right? So
yes,
there are, I think, some interesting, potential interactions with this. I also, I like how you said, well, it's yellow pitch, so not super exciting. But the reality is, historically, with these classes, yellow might also just be enough because it's not like Assassin has the most expensive cards. It means you're not likely swinging, a weapon, but it's enough to get the job done. And obviously most arrows cost usually 1 to load, 1 to fire. So it's still, decent in that regard. But the other bit that I feel like I have to mention is they did show that this card has a Marvel version. And
before you say Marvel, there is one thing I want to point out.
Okay.
One thing really quick. This actually is solving a problem because this is solving the 1 card hand problem for Rangers, where if this is your 1 card, you get an arrow to shoot. So yeah, now you have this, but yeah, go get into this Marvel card phase. This is fascinating.
This is beautiful. So I saw some people say, hey, I don't I don't know how I feel about this because it doesn't look like the other Marvels that we've gotten so far, and there was some concerns about the cards looking clownish in the future, right? Like
Clownish.
getting too much like Magic, because I know that Magic
Yeah,
has like a
yeah.
million different card types and whatever, and personally that doesn't bother me. I actually like some of the like really weird ones, like when Future Sight came out for Magic. I adored the like future card faces because
Yes.
of a number of reasons,
And
but
how hideous
um
Tarmogoyf was. Yes.
yeah, but I really is that a
Oh
first beer
God, no!
show?
Are you fucking high? Like,
I
no.
know. It's just the first one we've heard.
Yeah, I usually start with the first one poured, and I just crack the second.
Yeah, I know. I saw. So I I adore this one because it thematically fits what the card is trying to do. So everything
Mhm.
so far Marvel wise has either been like big expanded art, making the art pop and be more beautiful, and I love those. Specifically stuff like the mech suit, or even just like the first one that we got, the Bravo, right, Star of the
Mhm.
Shore. Like I loved that. But Codex of Frailties Marvel, it goes a step further because it's a codex. Obviously, it's a book, and it's got in the normal art these like tattered pages, and then the Marvel looks like a page torn right from the book. It's got like a different font. It kind of looks like
Mhm.
somebody's beautiful handwriting, and then there's like sketches of the effects from what
Mhm.
appears to be like some sort of plant or flower on somebody's body, and their body looks hideous. So I think that's the frailty part kicking in. So like I love that they were like, okay, let's dive into the theme of this. Now we know from the announcement that we get 3 Marvels this set, and since we see this one, and we know that this one is also one of those dual class cards, this is an Assassin Ranger action. I am speculating, don't know this for certain, but I'm speculating that our 3 Marvels will probably be a majestic dual class card that's some sort of book from each of the pairings, right? So this is the Assassin Ranger. There's probably going to be a Ranger Ninja and an Assassin Ninja one as well. And then we'll have these really cool, like torn pages versions of all of them, would be my guess.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and I love. So looking at the art of this, the first thing I thought of was holy shit, because this is absolutely gorgeous to me. The second thing I thought was, I bet the foiling on this is absolutely gas. Like,
Yeah.
this will be one of the prettiest things you'll pull out of a Flesh and Blood pack ever. And I also love that there's only 3, because as a collector, chasing down Infinite Marvels is, I don't love it.
Counterpoint though. You need 3 of each.
I hate you so much right now.
Because you gotta have a play set.
Yep, you sure do. No, when it comes to Marvels, so the base set is play sets. The Marvel sets for me, unless I'm playing the cards, then I turn into more of a whale than I already am. I will go hunt them down. But if there's something that is just part of the collection, so like the dragons, for instance, I have 1 of each Marvel. I'm not chasing down 3
Well,
of.
those are legendaries anyway. So for the
No, only
Marvel,
3 of them are.
sorry, I was thinking majestic. The majestic ones are legendaries, right?
Correct. And so the other ones, though, are not. So I'd have to chase down 3 of each. But I don't really play Dromai much. And also, if I were, I'm content to just play the non-Marvel versions. That's totally fine. I'm not an insane Dromai stan. You know who you are. And the Prism stands, who just foiled out, extended arted their Prism decks, just did the same thing with Dromai. It's like they're a
Yeah.
type. So, and
That's
I don't.
because people who main illusionists think that money is an illusion. That's all it is.
Jesus Christ. Okay, well, that's probably true, because every illusionist main is like, I need this in foil. And it's like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure you do. And then man, LSS is smart. They know how to make money. Like, so they just got everybody to just start chasing these Marvel dragons because they say illusionist on them. But I know a lot of people have kind of complained that, okay, I want my Flesh and Blood cards to look like Flesh and Blood cards. Great. Don't use the Marvels. There are Flesh and Blood card versions of every single one of these. You don't need to use the Marvels. But the Marvels to me are just sweet looking, which is the point. That's the point of a Marvel, is to look fucking cool. And we're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, this looks great to me. I'm
I
totally
mean, I
into it.
think this might be my favorite Marvel to date. And like I said, I adore some of those big, sweet, full art ones, but just thematically, I think this one nails it. I love this one.
Yeah, absolutely. This like it kind of reminds me of like the sketches you see in the Necronomicon Ex Mortis in the Evil Dead series. And that just gives me every sort of happiness that I'd ever want in life because that's one of my favorite series of all time.
Yeah, or even if I mean if you're a parent who is also a nerd like me, it also reminds me of like the book from Gravity Falls.
I was actually really hoping that you read your children the Necronomicon Ex Mortis as bedtime stories.
I
But
have a Necronomicon, but I haven't read it to them yet. But I have read the Gravity Falls book. Like you can buy that, and I've
yep,
read that to my children. So
it's just it's the beginner's Necronomicon. I get it.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part. So this is also so there's 239 cards in the set. Our standard one fabled, only 5 legendaries, which is good. I don't like when there are 8 or whatever there are sometimes. 31 majestic, 51 rare, 128 commons, and like we talked about, 3 marvels. Pretty standard configuration here. I like that they haven't gone out of their way to if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But one of the coolest things here is that for the first time, this set is going to be released in French, German, Italian, and Spanish alongside the English release. And that speaks to me, it speaks to the growth of the game on as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
because uh, feeling like you need to print those cards or print the cards as they come out into those markets means those markets have grown enough that you need to print the cards into those markets as they come out. So that's just great to me. Like personally, I think that that's very, very cool. And I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad they're doing it like just as that's a go forward to me. Like this is just a thing. And as they're expanding Flesh and Blood into Japan, we're probably going to see history packs 1 and 2 as Japanese black labels, and probably some form or fashion of a history pack that's going to encompass this year in black label Japanese. And then they'll probably, beginning next year, be printing Sense of Japanese as well. That's just, again, as somebody who has been in on this game, not the ground floor, but close enough to the ground floor to see how much it's grown in that time. It's amazing. It feels so good that this is happening now, that they're expanding to be they've always been a truly international game, as they are located in New Zealand and a lot of the game takes place in other continents. But to see it like in this type of expansion where outside of the English language we're getting cards printed on the regular is very encouraging for the long-term health of the game, in my opinion.
So I just real quick want to toss out a question before we move on to the next segment, which is we know 5 legendaries.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your speculation on where they're going to land, because I have a suspicion it's going to be 1 legendary for each class, right? So that's 3 of the 5, probably at least 1 generic. So do you think that the 5th one is a second generic, or is it
Nope.
going to be somebody's specialization? Like,
It's Ranger Assassin.
you think so?
I think we have a Ranger Assassin legendary.
I could see that.
Like just a hybrid, a very cool hybrid thing.
I think I could see that. If it was going to be a hybrid, though, I'm going to be honest, I think it would be a ninja assassin. And my reasoning is because I think that it would be something specifically to go alongside the story of Azuri. Yeah.
I like that. My thought process with Ranger Assassin was an actual weapon for a ranger to use that would also be useful for an assassin. So you wouldn't have to be a bow ranger, and that the weapon there, so there'd be the token weapon for Riptide, which will be, I mean, it's a token weapon. They're not going to reprint fucking Rosetta Thorn. I really fucking hope they're not going to do another Rosetta Thorn, but then give because the weapon options for Arachne right now, or for Assassin right now in general, are just Spider's Bite, and they're fine. Like they're kind of cool. They do a thing. They have an interesting effect on the game, in my opinion. But I think that they could do more. But I don't think that they want it to be so narrow that it would really affect how those cards like work in a vacuum. So I think that the token weapons for Arachne are still going to be Spider's Bites, and maybe for Azuri too. and then you have a legendary weapon that is Ranger Assassin. Although I could also see Ninja Assassin, honestly.
Interesting.
But I do
I
agree
can't
with
wait to find out.
I do agree with the 3 and a generic. That I agree with.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
that's what I'm
see.
saying. I mean, I could see it just also being like 2 generics, but that just felt weird to me, right? So
Yeah. But do you think that the Fabled is going to be another version of a card that already exists?
oh, so I go back and forth on this because I liked what they did with the last set. I liked that it was a reprint because I still think that that addresses a lot of accessibility issues. As somebody who wants to play Icelander and am thinking about switching to Oldhim, and I know that some Oldhim lists are also running it, like I don't like that I don't own a heart, for example, right? So I'm already feeling the kind of like fabled accessibility issue. So on that note, I still want another site, another landmark for this set. I think it'd be really cool to have a site that's like in the pits.
Okay.
But I don't know if I want that to like be the fabled, or if maybe that's the 5th, maybe that's the legendary. They slide it down, and then the fabled is a fabled E-Strike, like we just got
Or
Command
Art
and
of War.
Conquer. So I could see Art of War, but because that felt like more Volcore-ish in the art the last time or whatever. I don't know why. I felt like Enlightened Strike also fit these heroes pretty well, but
What about a Fabled Tunic?
I could see that as well. We can never have enough tunics in circulation, it would seem. So
Nope,
throw it
not
at
now,
me.
especially not now. Like,
Yeah.
you have all of these new players coming in, and if you're somebody that pays attention to the price of these cards, Tunic and Crown of Providence have skyrocketed. Like, they are approaching inaccessible levels.
Yeah.
Because I mean, but again, the good side of all of this versus when you talk about like a Magic mana base is you only need one ever.
You only need
So
one, and I've even now, like when I talk to other folks who play card games that are not Flesh and Blood, I've heard, hey, it's still too expensive, it's still inaccessible, and I keep trying to remind them that like they're doing their best. The problem is they're literally just growing faster than they can print stuff. Like,
yep.
Tunic's been printed a lot theoretically for a legendary right now. It's like 3-4 times, something like that. I think it's 3.
I mean, it depends on how you consider history pack. But yes, it's been printed in obviously WTR, Crucible, History Pack 1, and History Pack 1 Black Label.
Right. I was
So
counting.
If you lump the history packs together, it's
yeah.
3.
So, and then there's obviously the gold foils floating around, but I don't count those either, right? So,
And the extended art, but yeah,
and the extended art and all those things. But like, I'm fine with them hitting that again. Let's do it. But I think that might be another history pack. I think every time we see history packs come around, that's going to be your tunics, your crowns, whatever. So I don't think it'll be this set. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of it being one legendary for each class, one generic legendary, and then you move from Fabled down either a gem or a site to be the 5th legendary. And then the Fabled, I would like it to be a reprint of, a Chase Majestic. So we already got the Command and Conquer. So again, Enlightened Strike, Art of War, or something in that vein, I think would be really neat.
Yeah, there's not a ton of generic chase cards as far as the Majestics go right now. Those are the big 3. They've been the big 3 since Arcane Rising came out. And I don't see that ever really changing much. They're all cards that operate on an axis that is unto themselves, and they're all above rate. So, they all right, I guess. They all seem kind of great for what they do, and I get why that people would kind of want those. Moving on, we are very, I know we touched on it earlier, but we're going to go through just as a quick hitter here that ProQuest Season 3, we've got our first weekend. We've seen some super, super diverse results, which is great to see. MinMax Games ProQuest had 8 different heroes in the top 8. There were, I believe, 6 in the top 8 of the Green Tree ProQuest. The one I was in Charleston, there was double 2 5s and 2 Briars, and then so 6 heroes again. So we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing that there's a lot of diversity. And just as a quick shout out to our listeners, the fappers, as they call themselves, like we really need to. You guys are okay. I did get an inquiry about merch this weekend. One of our listeners does want Flesh and Pod underwear. So there's a lot going on here where we're having a proud fapper stamped on your underwear. That's a lot. Like y'all are kind of nuts. But congrats to Dagan White, who this is a pure cold-blooded assassin. The man did not need a Pro Tour invite. He was going to be qualified on limited elo, and yet still showed up to the local tournament, murdered everybody, took the gold foil, and got the invite. And the rationale for him was, well, now in every other event, the invite will pass down. Just a pure cold-blooded assassin. And I said this in our Discord, and I mean this entirely. Dagan's a friend of mine. That's a feature and not a bug. That is the mindset you have to be successful, and he just represents it the entire way. But love to see it. Also, C-Dubs, Chris Whitinger, he won in, I believe, Cincinnati, and he had the awkward open of Coda Frost. There have been 2 of those open so far as gold foils, and that's a pretty big feel bad. Dagan opened a Crucible of Aetherweave. That one's a pretty good one. And then our good friend Theo Griswold Wizard also took down a ProQuest and opened a gold foil Romping Club for his trouble, which if you know your Brute stands, they do love themselves some clubs. They go clubbing a lot in every way, shape, and form. Whether it's baby seals or just nightlife, they enjoy the clubbing. So congrats on taking down your ProQuests. Well-deserved, well-earned. We are almost an hour into the show. We haven't even had listener questions. So we're going to have to keep this train moving a little bit and talk about our February Armory kit. They decided that, and as an aside, I am so happy to have shit to talk about. Yeah. It's great. However, they could have maybe spaced this out just a little bit so that we could have stuff to talk about. Well, I mean, like previous to this, I would love to do another 2-hour show next week. That'd be great. But and maybe we will. Who knows? Because I think we'll probably have a guest on next week, and TBD. But we'll have some fun shit to talk about here coming up too. Again, just a spoiler alert. Keep tuning in because there's some stuff that's in the works that is going to probably be announced on this show, and it's batshit crazy. So February Armory kit, we finally get the cold foil reverse Spider's Bite, which is very cool. We get Hemorrhage Boar rainbow foil promos. Those will definitely be very accessible in the 5-cent bin of whatever store that you shop at. And then we get that this is kind of the one that's going to be the chase, I think, a Pulse Wave Harpoon mat. That card is insane.
The card is good. I like the art. I think that's a great mat. I will say that I, as somebody who doesn't own the other one, am still also kind of chasing the really cool Dynasty, big throne dragon themed one because sure. I think it's pretty, and I haven't got one yet. So I'm excited that we get another crack at that. But really, for me, the big thing is the reverse Spider's Bite. I gotta get one of those.
Yep, I would love to complete my Spider's Bite cold foil.
I was gonna say I don't have the other one cold foil. I've got both ways rainbow foil, but I don't own a cold foil.
I'm pretty sure I have an extra, so hit me up at some point. But I think that's very cool. I think that's there's usually a little bit of a dud of an armory kit at some point in time. The rainbow foil kind of has that feeling, especially coming off Cut to the Chase being actually a playable card in Assassin. And then also alongside just cold foil Arachnes, which is also very cool, considering that the Arachnes not getting reprinted in
Yeah.
Outsiders. So that one's a very good one to have. And then the playmat with surgical extraction, which, whew, okay. So that one was super cool. So here we're coming to hemorrhage bore, which is a little bit of a letdown, but the spider's bite and the pulse wave harpoon are definitely hits. I think that those are things that people want. Or at least I feel that way. So again, good job, LSS. We are overwhelmingly positive on the show today. There is no complaints whatsoever that you're going to hear out of our mouths outside of.
I got a complaint.
Is it the fact that True Lies is not readily available on Blu-ray?
No, but I would like to add that to the list now that you have reminded me. No, my complaint was going to be that I am not able to yet announce all of the cool casting things I'm going to do later this year.
But we know that they exist.
Stay tuned.
At some point in time, we need to really discuss the fact that somehow, some way, being involved with me has not lessened your employment opportunities, which is, I don't understand that. You should be blackballed by now.
Listen, because I don't know how it worked out, but people not only are throwing more work at me, but they also are getting my name right. So I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's weird. Both Charmer. So there was the Alpha Clash people who said to you Charmer, and they got it right. But then I've also had Battle Spirits. They contacted me and they said, "Hey, Darick," and they spelled the Darick right, and that like never happens. And I know you're thinking like, "Hey, it's like there when they're writing you. Why aren't they just copying your name?" As somebody who's received hundreds of thousands of emails, and I've gotten graded homework back from teachers where my name is on your class roster and you write it all year long, let me tell you, my name is not spelled correctly often at all because my parents hated me. So if you're listening and you've never seen my name written, my name is Darick, but it's spelled Darick because my parents hate me. So, yeah, yes. Darick. So the fact that people are getting that right, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's just because we're in, the year 2023 of our Lord Cthulhu, and 23 is a prime number, which has got, some strength and some power. Who knows? But I'm going to ride this wave. Couldn't be happier. Overwhelming positivity indeed.
Prime numbers, baby. That's where it's at. Well,
I have a thing. I have to do volume on prime numbers. It drives my wife nuts because once you get from, because because I have a thing. And so like if you have the volume and it's in the teens, it's fine because you go like 13, 17, 19, 23. But then if 23 is not loud enough, you have to go all the way up to like 29. And then she's like, that's too loud. And she was like, why can't we put it on like 25? And I'm like, because the world will end. No, it's prime numbers. So
that's divisible by 5. Can't happen. And I mean, there are some prime number jokes that can be made that I'm not going to make because they are horrifying in the context that they wound up in. But I will say this, I do believe that some places are going to be very happy with your work, but at the beginning of everything, they're going to be very upset that they thought they were hiring Tannen Patrick and instead got Darick Oswald. So that's probably going to hain.
They're also going to be like weirded out when I make them pay me in prime numbers.
Yes, I need $2,333.31. Fuck, man, that's not. It is a prime number though. Like I can do math in my head, so that one actually is a prime number. We have 4 listener questions. We are an hour plus into the show, which means that we've got at least 20 minutes to go. So y'all are in for the long haul here. First one, Iron Mag 44. How you doing, buddy? It's been a minute. So with the new set being teased last night with 6 draftable heroes out there, how do you feel about reprint Azalea and Benji being slapped into the mix? Darick, your thoughts?
I like it, and I'd also like to point out Katsu is there as well. So we're half and half on new versus old, and I like it for a couple of reasons. First, I think that the ones that are being included are heroes that could use some additional love. I don't think that these were ones that were, dominating the meta and that people were like, it's not like, post Briar, we're getting another Rune Blade, right?
Sure.
So I am fine with it because I think that they deserve a chance to shine. But I'm also okay with them just in general revisiting older heroes, because I think that people grow attached to their heroes, right? And we know that there are, stands of Dash, and we say the cult of Azalea all the time, right? And so throwing them a bone, if you're not going to print a new one and you don't need to print a new one, throwing them a bone, I think, is entirely fine. And it's also, I think, fair to say that the first time, even in limited, right, Azalea really didn't get her chance to shine, et cetera, et cetera. Benji has never really had a chance to shine
At
in
all.
a limited
Yeah.
format, right? At all. But I just mean like in a limited format. Like, I think that's the other cool thing about including these young heroes, is because, maybe in the future we'll get a draftable KO, a draftable Kasai, right? I am already
Oh,
loving the
don't do
idea
that.
of revisiting these. I know I said it on purpose.
Do
I
not
got
give me
so
the hope of a
excited.
draftable Kasai. Do
Yeah.
not do that. You
So
are
I think that it's good. I'm a big fan.
there are the Kasai stands and are as bad as anyone else. And me being one of them. Also, a friend of the podcast, friend of humanity, Elaine Hammondtree is also one of them. We both our nightly prayers involve needing an adult Kasai and knowing that we're probably never getting one. But even a draftable Kasai
Oh, the thing
would
that's funny about Elaine is that she always needs an adult.
facts.
Love
Big
you, Elaine.
facts. Love you, Elaine. Flake is listening to this go right now going pickles, but yes. So I think that's fantastic. Like, it does open the door for some of these young only heroes to get a chance to be played outside of the Blitz meta and into something a little bit different. I think it's very interesting to me that they chose Katsu and they chose Azalea. Katsu is a WTR hero and is infinitely draftable in the set that he was in. Like, you could definitely draft a very good Katsu deck. Is one of the harder decks to play and to draft correctly in WTR. I think because there's a lot of push and pull with what you need for the deck to function, and there's some misunderstandings people have, but ultimately can be very strong, very powerful. The when you talk about Azalea, there's nothing bad about Azalea Unlimited outside of sometimes endgame gets a little complicated, but most of her cards blocked for 3 and 2-card hands are super good. Like, you have incredibly good 2-card hands. There was and so that Azalea is definitely was playable in that limited format, and the only problem with Azalea in that limited format are the existence of Dash and Kano. So at that
Right.
point in
I was
time,
just going to say the problem with her was all of the other heroes in that set.
Viserai was still felt like fine-ish. Dash and Kano, though, not so
Yeah.
much. Like, you were getting strangled out of that format.
Especially like if either one of those were uncontested at your table, or if it was only like 1 or 2 people, you just were not going to have a good time.
Or if somehow, some way, like, and I saw this in person happen, where a Kano player opened all of the null rune that was going to be at the table, and then a snap took it, so that no one had an EAB, and everything they did was just unmitigated, and just steamrolled the draft.
Yep.
Done. Or I also saw this one, which this was mind-boggling, where Jordan Kennedy, former Flesh and Pod host emeritus, as it were, he wound up, we drafted Arcane Rising, and he was the only Dash at the table. And he wound up with a fucking Blitz deck. Like, it was, honest to God, no non-mech cards. So every boost was turned on. And it was ludicrous to just like, there's no way to win. Like, you're just super dead at all points in time. Even the draft deck that I had at the Realm event, where with Dash being the only one at a 6-person table, was very good. Like, the plasma, what I have, induction chamber, to just kind of go nuts, was very good, and was still not as good as what Jordan had going. So those two kind of choked Azalea, and to a degree Viserai, out of that format. So I think it's good to let her shine too, because she's not a bad draft hero at all. She's not a bad limited hero at all. So that's going to be very interesting to see, especially dependent on what Riptide does. So I feel like it's good. I don't think it's a bad thing to have them slapped into the mix at all. I think so. Our next question from Farcist. He loves that I pronounce his name correctly. So Farcist With Briar almost living legend out and Viserai the only Runeblade left, will LSS bring another Runeblade after Outsiders? Sub question was, is there a form of Viserai that is viable in this meta to compete? So let's take the first question first. Yeah, they're going to print another Runeblade.
And it's probably going to be Chain.
It's probably going to be
version of Chain.
It's probably going to be broken because they have yet to balance a Runeblade. I guess Viserai is pseudo balanced. The Bloodsheath Skeleta was the unbalanced part of Viserai. Right. So it wasn't that Viserai was the problem. There were problem cards printed around Viserai. Chain was just a problem. Briar is just a problem. Like those two heroes are, especially the way Briar was printed initially. But even if we leave that out, Briar is still kind of a problem. So when we talk about those two things, I'm skeptical that we will see a balanced Runeblade, but at least it's hopeful. Like I think that they can do it. Viserai being pretty good. Chain is probably the answer for the next one. We'll see. Will be a different version because they do have they will have to start printing versions, CC versions of Chain, Prism, anything that's been LL that has specializations attached to it, to make it so that the cards that exist as specializations are still playable. So you'll end up needing a new Chain, a new Prism, eventually a new Briar when she goes. You don't need a new Starvo, thank God, because there are Bravo specializations. There's still a Bravo, so you don't have to worry about that part. So that's they will come. They will be here. Is there a form of Viserai that is viable in this meta to compete? I'm sure there is. This meta is wide open. And
we've seen a couple in top 8s, so I know that it's doable. I think that to me right now, Viserai just feels like a balanced version of Starvo, right? Old Starvo was you had to line up your elements and then you got a pretty good offensive turn. The problem is that you just needed to hit elements. It wasn't specific cards. Current version of Viserai, in my opinion, is you just line up your hand with a Mauve Skies. So the turns where you can go Mauve Skies, attack, Thorn, all feel really good. And then every other turn feels like you got to make some decisions, right? So
that doesn't read the same as Autumn's Touch for 7, dominate, go again.
Well, I mean, it doesn't, right? But what I'm saying is your output with Starvo was, usually, what is it? 11 to 13, somewhere in there.
Was 11 a turn.
Yeah, your floor was 11 a turn. And the problem was that it was just hyper consistent, right? But if you're looking at hey, I'm going to do 11 a turn and some of it is going to leak through. In that case, it was because of dominate. And then you go to the other side and you say, okay, if somebody does Mauve Skies, Shrill, and then Thorn, right? That's going to be a chunk of damage. And then once you tack on the rune chance and whatever, you're also around 11, depending on which colors of those are hitting. So that's why I say it's the powered down, more fair version, but it still plays the same, where you're trying to assemble the pieces to make your hand work. It's just that the output isn't Starvo levels of output. That's the difference.
Okay, I see where you're going with it. You're not comparing the power levels, you're comparing what they're trying to put together.
Play style. When I've piloted Viserai, that's just your standard mid Viserai without Bloodsheath. It just felt the same way it felt when I was playing Starvo, where when you're hand aligned, you knew what you were doing. That was your turn. And then you just had to piece together your off turns.
Yeah, that's the difference with Starvo, is there were very few off turns.
Yeah.
It was
there were very few off turns, and your on turns were pretty good. Even your generic on turns were dominate plus likely donating a frostbite because of Winter's Wail as well. So
yeah, the get Oaken olded and here's a frostbite for your troubles was enough. Next question is from C-Dubs, ProQuest winner. I'm sorry, C-Dubs. Nice coat of frost you got there, buddy. Why do you think they made only 3 Marvels and Outsiders? Do you think there is something else happening that they aren't revealing until later? Pretty typical of LSS to surprise us. So I think the 3 Marvels is a concession to understanding when product fatigue hits. The amount of Marvels in Dynasty is too much. There are basically every piece of Majestic equipment and Crouching Tiger and Emperor is a lot. All the dragons was a lot. Shaving it down to 3 and maybe making them a little less likely to open will increase the chase rate for these cards, causing the set to be open more. On the other hand, this is a draftable set. It's going to be opened a ton. So limiting the Marvels also limits the, because I'm going to guess they have not, and from what I didn't read this anywhere that they announced this, that the Marvels will take up a token slot like they did in Uprising. So, and that they will not be playable in draft, but would be playable in sealed.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then there's less awkwardness in a draft with, or in a sealed with opening Marvels. So I think that having 3 is a good spot. I think that makes them a little more exciting to open, because it's, remember, for everybody that opened a Marvel unplayable dragon, it kind of looked like, well, that's pretty, but ultimately, what do I care?
Well,
Whereas here,
I mean, people did want to collect them though. So my take is that I think this is mostly a thematic choice, because when you think about the Marvels, very first one was Bravo Star of the show. It's the only one we had in Everfest, and makes sense. He was literally the star of the show, in the competitive sense, but also just like in the Everfest theme, like he defined that. So if you're only going to do one, makes sense to do him, right? Then when we started getting the dragons, for example, we had never had dragons like that in a set, and everybody loves dragons. Like, let's be honest, who doesn't love dragons? And on top of that, we'd never really seen something so ally centric, right? We've had allies, but not like, hey, you're going to have 4 or 5 on the board. And so since this is like a new introduction, I think that it made sense for them to go a little ham on the dragons and make it fun, right? Hey, let's throw everybody a bone. Then when we have Dynasty hit, again, thematically, they were really trying to play up this Emperor thing. It's also not like a draftable set. And so if you're trying to like throw people a bone for these supplemental sets, because like, let's be honest, we've talked about it in the past, the supplemental sets tend to lose a little bit of fanfare because they're not draftable. And so like you open them, you get your play sets, and then like you just don't open it anymore, right? So with Everfest only having the one Marvel, Crucible obviously didn't have any, and so forth. I think that with Dynasty, they were testing the waters of what if we put a bunch of Marvels in a supplemental set so that people still have something to potentially be excited about, right? So they played into the theme of the throne room. And so it was all of the weapons in the Emperor's throne room, and then obviously the super rare Emperor himself, but it fits thematically. Then you come to this set, and as you said, very draftable, going to be opened a bunch, but also if they were like, hey, we're introducing dual class cards and we don't want to do it, let's say, for just every, common and rare generic ones or whatever. Let's maybe just do the Majestics, hit the ones. And then, like I said, I anticipate it's a cycle of books. Hey, cool. Let's just do something thematic for the books, knock it out. Right. I think that all of these realistically have been a combination of thematic choices along with trying to find the right balance of them. And I think that in draftable sets, we're probably going to see them pull back. And then I would not be shocked if the next supplemental set we get has a bunch again. I think that's going to be the happy medium for making people still excited about opening the supplementals.
I will, again, we've been on wax that opening Dynasty was not the best experience, just in general. Because getting double blessed, I mean, I love being blessed. I am daily blessed. This is bullshit. But the getting a double blessed out of a pack of Dynasty did not feel great. I will say this. I really, really want a German Marvel Codex of Frailty. Like, that's going to be fucking stupid.
If we get that set printed in Japanese, I really, if you give me like Japanese kanji Codex of Frailty, like my wallet hurts thinking about it.
My guess is they would do it in katakana, but even then, like, it still looks
honestly sweet. I think it'd be cool as well, knowing that we're getting these in different languages. I just want one, like I want my playset, but I want one of each in a bunch of different languages, right? Give me you know, I love the idea of like, okay, there's this person who is this studious researcher, and so he recorded his notes in 3 different languages so that he could pass it to his colleagues around the globe, sort of thing. So give me it in 3 different languages.
Also starting to sound like Evil Dead. That's great.
Yeah,
That's, I mean,
I
every
keep
part of
hitting
this,
it.
yeah, you just keep nailing that. It's like, just if you're ever involved in a horror movie scenario, don't read the book out loud. Just, just don't. It's a bad idea. Just don't. Let it go.
Always read the book out loud, preferably in front of a mirror. What could
There's
possibly go wrong?
nothing, absolutely nothing could ever go wrong. Also, you know, whenever we find a tomb somewhere, let's just open it. You know, there's no
Yeah.
curses. There's no such thing. It's fine.
When you find
Nothing
the
could possibly
container,
go
just
wrong.
drink the contents.
Just,
what could
oh
go
yeah,
wrong?
it could just be beer. Like, I mean, fuck. I mean, I go through great lengths for beers.
Yeah, I forget what the article was, but there was something I read that was like archaeologists find this ancient thing and it tastes like almonds, and all I kept thinking was like, who's licking these things?
Like, what the fuck are you doing? Why? So, okay, I'm gonna go on a tangent on humans really quick. Humans are stupid because we see something and our first instinct is put it in our mouths. And so if you think about beer, you think about alcohol in general, it's actually poisoning you. Legitimately, what it is doing is poisoning you. And the taste of it is to tell you to not drink it. Instead, what humans have done is gone, but what if we just make it taste better? Then it's okay to drink, right?
I mean,
no, it's still fucking poison.
You're describing like peppers that make people cry and sneeze and vomit, and we're like, put it on tacos. You know, like that's what we do.
Get it in there.
I don't get it either. Or even just like, as somebody who has an abnormal sleep cycle, and you know this because every time you message me, I answer, no matter what the time of day is. You know, I always laugh because I always think that was probably over time a genetic adaptation for humans to always have somebody alert to protect each other. Like half the population's awake during the day, half is, you know, a bit nocturnal, and so you watch each other, right? And then as humans, we were like, except we're going to make everybody get up in the morning and shame the people who don't.
And also, we're going to make sure that whatever we design is going to be in such a design that we're going to allow you to achieve the highest level of peace that is available for you to achieve, and then interrupt it with a blaring siren to make you have this Pavlovian response of just dread, knowing that your peace is going to be shattered in the most obnoxious way possible. Like,
you also hate
awful.
Alarm clocks, huh?
I do. I really do.
I do too.
Oh my God.
They make me so angry. Like, I wake up angry.
I mean, I go to bed angry, whatever. But I'm an old man yelling at cloud, I guess. But we have one more listener question.
Okay,
it is from
let's hit it.
Bassist20017, first time question asker. What new hero is your most anticipated hero and why? Darick, I'm going to give this one to you first.
All right. So it's very hard for me to not say Riptide because, as I said, I want a ranger that doesn't have a bow and I want to see traps. And there's just so much, I think, really cool design space there. However, now that we got a taste of Assassin, I am legitimately excited to see Yuzuri and how she is different from Arachne, because we already know Arachne's kind of play style, how he plays into you know, the contracts and with the assassin equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So the fact that we're getting her as well as a different Arachne as well, I want to see how that impacts contracts, how that impacts, you know, the silver and the other monetary pieces. I love it when you have something and then you expand on it. So for me, it's a bit of both, right? Because Riptide is that same thing. We have this like foundation for what we think of when we think of Ranger and Flesh and Blood, and I expect him to really expand on it. And then we just got Arachne and we're like, okay, this is Assassin. And then right out of the gate, they're like, oh, by the way, we're just going to blow that out of the water. Like, we know stealth is coming. I'm excited to see what that is, and I want to explore that. So for me, it's probably Uzuri, just because that's so much fresher. We just got Assassin, but Riptide is a very close second right now.
So for me, it's Arachne Solitary Confinement. I think that there's a couple of things this card are like, just the couple of sweet spots this thing hits for me. The first being that it doesn't look like that this Arachne is going to be contract based at all. It looks like this Arachne is going to be based around some completely different mechanic, and it doesn't look very stealthy either. It gives me the Rorschach vibe. I know we've talked about this before of I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me, because that's a lot of bodies. And it was very impolite the way he handled them. It is some real fucking murder. And it was not stealthy. Not at all. If you look at this art, this is not stealth. That's exposed rib cages.
I mean,
and
where are you going to hide in a solitary confinement cell?
Nowhere.
You know,
So
surprise, I'm in the toilet.
So he's holding his two spider's daggers, and they're just all fucking dead. And there's just blood drenching the walls of everything and gristle everywhere. This is not, he was not contracted to kill these. He just did this because out of necessity, most likely. But on the same token, it's just like, no, this is straight murder. There's no reason to carve somebody to the point that their ribs are exposed from their chest. So to me, this is a very different hero. This is not the Arachne that delivers toys to children in Metric. This is the Arachne that murks fools who get in his fucking way. And this is the beginning of his character arc. And so I think that the ability is a little different. However, I'm right with you. Riptide is my close second. I want to shove an anchor through people's chest. Not in reality. Like I don't wake up in the morning and go, it'd be great if I could take a ship's anchor and impale somebody today. That is not how I wake up. However, in this card game, it does look like a really cool concept. So that's where I am with these two cards. I also think, I guess this speaks to some of the design we were talking about, because Azuri is also intriguing to me. Very, very intriguing to me. I think that she'll be quite good. And I'm excited to see what they do with her and her story, especially with Katsu and Benji around the Mysterian ninjas. That's very, very interesting with how that happens. And if you've read any of the lore, the Mysterian ninjas are trying to cure a disease in their clan. So that's all part of this. And this can lead into the Alchemist. This can lead into a lot of very different things. So I'm interested. I'm very, very interested in how all this works.
Darick? I just keep thinking about you waking up every day wanting to put an anchor in somebody, like singing sea shanties, like,
okay,
what I want to do to a drunken sailor, fill his chest with a big old anchor. Oh, I'm Logan. Like I'm just imagining that as like your cheery wake up.
I want to see the bile spill from their guts as the anchor penetrates all their various glands. I want that acrid smell to crawl through my nasal passages and give me that feeling of freedom over the control of life and death. That is all I want, and that is all I want when I wake up. You are correct, man. You soul read me on that one. What the fuck are you thinking? Like, no, but yes, kind of. All right, let's get out of here, man. It's been a hell of a show. I want to thank everybody here, but I do specifically want to shout out our Patreon members. And so we have our patrons at the different tiers. And so we're going to start with, as soon as I can find it, dear God, I was not prepared today. So we're going to start with our $5, which is Andy. Thank you, sir. My associate producer. Executive producers and on up are Chris, May, Philip, Taylor, Ed, Josh, Kenny, Nick D, Teague, and Mike B. If you would like to be part of our Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link will be in the show notes. We have 4 tiers to explore. There will be some different Patreon rewards coming. We are working with some friends on some various merchandise, and also with some different designs that will be coming to our existing patrons, and also be available for new patrons. We will be retiring some of the old rewards. So if you ever wanted one of the dopest looking playmats you'll ever see in your life, which is the original Flesh and Pod playmat with a stitched edge, you would need to join our Patreon very soon for that, the possum supporter level. I'm never getting rid of that. Until Jordan buys Abby a possum, I am keeping that named possum supporter, even though Abby is no longer on the show on a weekly basis. I feel like that is a proper tribute until Jordan gets off his ass and buys her a possum. So please pop in, see what you like, and like I said, those will be changing a little bit here in the upcoming. You can also join us on our Discord. Those links will be in the show notes. You can also email us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. However, I will point out that the complaints department has not moved. It is still the trash can next to Jordan's desk. Darick, where can they find you?
Here next week and every week thereafter. They can also find me by searching just about anywhere for Charmer. I'll probably popped up. It's Charm 3R, not Chamber, not Charmander, not.
Are you sure?
I mean, I'm relatively sure, mostly sure. The places where I'm not Charmer, I'll have to be that Charmer, because some people are camping dead accounts. So like Twitter and Instagram, I'm that Charmer, but pretty much everywhere else, Twitch, YouTube,
Charmer.com.
Hive, like Charmer.com. Yeah, I'm everywhere. So Charmer or Darick. Again, my name is spelled weird. So like if you Google Darick the way I spelled it earlier, you're going to get a bunch of stuff for Darick Robertson, a very famous comic book artist.
Yes,
he
did some very good work.
Boys, does some other stuff. Also just a nice guy. We sometimes send messages back and forth because we have weird names. But then you'll also find me. So, you can also search by Darick.
You can find me on Twitter at Logan Peterson, currently mostly just talking about my experiences over the past week with driving 1,800 miles to play in 2 Pro Quests and the friends I made along the way. However, I will also be shit talking with the NFL playoffs going on. And then baseball's hot stove is cooling down. However, with spring training is right around the corner, I will be spending a week in Phoenix like I always do, watching baseball and being that is probably the point in my life that I usually wake up and ask myself if I'm actually an alcoholic, because the amount we drink in Arizona is probably right on the precipice of having a problem. So that's always something that I enjoy, and I can't wait. That's usually March. March is a very full month for us, just generally speaking, with pre-release, then the release, and then there's also Battlehardened Charlotte. There's a lot of things going on in March. So
Realm event.
Oh, the Realm
was announced for March.
Jesus, yes, that's we will be there, both of us. I can just tell you straight away, we will be there, because if Keith does a thing, if the Realm does a thing, we don't miss it. And one of us will always be. I feel like I could probably say this with complete honesty, that there will always be one of us there at minimum, and most of the time, both of us. So you can always find us there as well at any Realm event. But outside of that, thank you for sticking with us, and thank you for indulging the last couple of weeks when there's no news. And then hopefully you've enjoyed the fact that we had a shit ton to talk about this week. So until then, we'll talk to you all next week. Bye.